So you're getting panic attacks, you're trying to make them stop, they won't stop, they're haunting you, they're tormenting you, you're desperate. Believe me, I've been there. I've spent crazy amounts of money on crap that didn't work. Here's a solution in a nutshell. In a nutshell, what you have to do, and you're not going to like this, bear with me, is lose the fear of a panic attack. It sounds stupid, crazy. I know because I've been there. There's another way of framing it. So yes, it's lose the fear. It doesn't have to be 100% loss. Like you don't have to be like, I totally don't care. You just have to be more, I don't mind. Does that make sense? The problem here is that you're stuck in a loop, right? It's the panic cycle typically is a fear of symptoms of fear. And it feeds into itself, right? So when you start getting anxiety, so by the way, like during a panic disorder, the typical presentation is they happen out of the blue, right? I'm just chilling, or maybe I'm walking somewhere and boom, panic attack. It's actually not out of the blue. For panic disorder, the panic attacks happen because for whatever reason, your body entered arousal mode and you associate arousal, meaning more like stress response, with the state of panic, with some catastrophic interpretation. Usually there's three primary preoccupations that people have with panic attacks. It's cardiac preoccupations, I'm going to have a heart attack, I'm going to have a stroke, something's wrong with my heart. Respiratory preoccupations, something's wrong with my breathing, I'm not getting enough air, I'm going to suffocate to death, I'm going to faint. And last one is derealized preoccupations. So that's, I'm losing my mind, I'm going crazy, I'm going to lose control of my body and do something stupid. Usually it's catastrophic stupid. So an example is like if you have a fear of bridges, this is more about agoraphobia, but if you have a fear of bridges, you might be terrified you're going to run off the bridge. Or if you're cutting carrots, you're cutting carrots in your kitchen, you might have this thought that will terrify you, that what if I just turn this knife on myself, right? So those are the three primary preoccupations, and they're always tied to the presence of your anxiety symptoms. So when you experience anxiety symptoms, that goes into you respond to those symptoms with fear. That fear feeds right back into the very intensity of those symptoms, making those symptoms ever more intense. And as the intensity of those symptoms grows, so does your anticipation anxiety that catastrophe that you're terrified of is about to happen. So again, one of those three, it could be just as simple as I'm going to just have to deal with this anxiety. I'm going to have to deal with this panic attack that I really don't want to. So that everybody has that one, but then also those three. There's other exceptions like fear of embarrassment, public embarrassment, which is associated with kind of like a death, but more like, now we're kind of getting philosophical, like identity death, right? People think of me positively right now, but if they see me, I don't know, crap my pants or vomit or something in public, they're gonna think less of me. I'm gonna be so embarrassed. How am I gonna recover from this, right? So that can also feed the panic cycle. Anyways, as long as you are afraid of that, as long as you are, no, okay, that's not quite this summarizes it nicely to say you got to lose the fear of your ultimate fear, but it's really not about losing 100% of the fear. It's just about becoming willing to have it happen. If I have no choice, just let it happen, right? So willing is a great word here because the way we treat panic in my practice is we use a combination of ACT with exposure therapy. ACT stands for Acceptance and Commitment Therapy, and exposure therapy is part of the CBT alphabet soup. And exposure therapy is just, you probably have heard of it. There's like TV shows of it out there where like people are afraid of germs and the fancy doctor will make the person eat chips off of Subway ground, which sounds disgusting, but that's exposure therapy. Or fear of spiders. So you have somebody who's terrified of spiders and you'll just put them in a room with a bunch of spiders. Maybe at first you make them look at a picture. That's exposure therapy, right? ACT is great at interrupting recursive anxiety. So recursive anxiety, another cool word. Recursive anxiety is just another word for basically a panic attack. I mean, it doesn't have to be a panic attack. You can have recursive anxiety without reaching the state of panic. The difference between a panic attack or panic disorder and agoraphobia, the kind of panic attacks you get in panic disorder and agoraphobia, And like a recursive anxiety that you might get, I don't know, on stage. Let's say you're doing public speaking, is that the consequences. Imagine consequence. Or another good example of recursive anxiety that's not panic attack is illness anxiety disorder. So in a panic attack, classic panic attack, it's fear of immediate death. Like, it's going to happen now. I'm going to suffocate. I'm going to have a heart attack. I'm going to go totally insane, lose my mind, lose touch with reality. Whereas in illness anxiety disorder, it's more distant. The preoccupations are more distant. I should make a video about that difference between panic disorder or like panic attacks and illness anxiety disorder, because they are overlapping, but they have, the preoccupations are different, right? The worries are different. So anyways, going back to the whole thing, willingness, ACT and willingness. So ACT stands for Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. It's a form of therapy that helps you build tolerance. Maybe not the right word. Acceptance. Good word. It helps you build acceptance towards life's experience, right? In our case, when we're talking about panic attacks, we're talking about the anxiety symptoms. That's where, when people have a panic disorder, agoraphobia, stuff like that, they end up rating really high. Well, I guess up, right? Really high on a measure called anxiety sensitivity. So anxiety sensitivity is this measure, this scientific measure that talks about that measures how reactive we are to the presence of anxiety, right? So, or to anything else. I mean, because we can have all kinds of different sensitivities. We could have nausea sensitivity. We could have loud noise sensitivity. You know how like there's people who react very strongly to this thing, this stimulus. Other people react very strongly to that stimulus. So that's the concept. Except anxiety sensitivity is specific to anxiety. So people who have panic attacks, they tend to develop very high, very, 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 very high anxiety sensitivity. By the way, you know what's really great to reduce anxiety sensitivity? Exercise. It's amazing. It's also, by the way, the people who have panic attacks, exercise, it's used as one form of exposure therapy. So, if you have, for example, cardiac preoccupations or respiratory preoccupations, well, watch out. If you go into a hardcore workout, you might set off a panic attack. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. And that's actually one thing that you have to start doing if you got panic attacks. You have to stop saying to yourself, reinforcing this idea that a panic attack is this bad thing. Now, you get a panic attack? Great. Why great? Why am I saying it's great? It's great because you now have an opportunity. Let's just say you have a panic attack right now, or you're going to have a panic attack in a few hours. Great. Why great? Because that's your opportunity to start learning familiarity with it, to start building that tolerance to endure it. You might be asking me, how do I endure it? It's so awful. There's really no good. I wish I could give you like, hey, here's a great way of doing that without feeling crappy. There ain't none. I'm basically asking you to fix this panic problem. What I'm asking you to do is get comfortable with the discomfort. Speaking of which, speaking of get comfortable with the discomfort, do you know there's two groups of people that come to my practice that recover very, very quickly. The first group are the hardcore like CEO types, go-getters, they tend to just like, I'm going to get this at any cost necessary, by any means necessary. Good attitude to have when it comes to dealing with panic attacks. The other group of people, the second group of people, athletes and ex-athletes. Man, I remember this one. This was an athlete. She was a runner. And there was two I remember really well. I remember the runner and I remember the fencer. So the runner still runs. The fencer no longer fences, but he goes a lot to the gym. So man or woman. I forget which one. They both finished very quickly. They were just like, you know what, Adam, I got this. First one was 1 month, meaning 4 sessions. We met 4 times. In 1 month, like she was good. I think it was that runner. The fencer also finished very quickly, maybe like a month and a half, 2 months tops. Discharged, like just, I'm good. I get this. Why? You might be asking, why is it that these CEO types and or these go-getter types, and why is it that athletes perform so well, do so well when they develop a panic disorder and they get out of this problem? I'll tell you why athletes. It's because athletes. The athlete example is the most straightforward one. Probably most of you have done sports, right? Have you ever done sports to the point where you push to the point of nausea? Where you push to the point of, man, your muscles burn, it hurts, everything hurts, your vision narrow, like that awfulness. Athletes are familiar with that process. Athletes are familiar with pushing past discomfort, pushing into the zone of discomfort and then going out the other side, no matter what, right? That's why athletes do so well. If you're not an athlete, if you're not a go-getter and you're not an athlete, this attitude would help you. Just maybe you could start before you even get to start working on panic. Maybe one thing you could try is, you know what? Let me see if I can learn to tolerate the discomfort of exercise. Start cracking out push-ups and get to the point of that physical discomfort and push past it. And as you do that, connect the dots for how that is a great metaphor for pushing past the discomfort of panic attacks. Okay. Now, is there a method to the madness? Is there a method to approach panic attacks in order to help us build tolerance to them? Yes, there is. So we borrow from ACT. Mindfulness. It's basically mindfulness. Mindfulness with the focus on diffusion. DE fusion. Okay. So diffusion is a concept from ACT. And the idea is to gain distance from all the different stimuli that you perceive. So what are some of the different stimuli a human being can perceive? 1, sight. You can see, right? 2, touch. Yeah, you could feel. So I can feel the chair underneath me, the support behind me. You can feel the butterflies in your stomach during a state of anxiety. You can feel the muscle tension. You can feel the restriction in your chest. Sight. You can be aware, sense the dizziness, the lightheadedness. Feels like you might be fainting. Touch. You might be aware of how your legs are shaking. They may feel like jelly. What else we got? Hearing. It's usually not related to panic attacks, but it might be. It really does depend on your unique constellation of triggers. Most people do not have a auditory related trigger. What else we got? Taste. Most people, again, for panic, they don't have. How many did I cover for? I think that was 4. There's one more missing. Olfactory. Smell. Again, most people know, unless nausea, which is a somewhat common over presentation, somewhat common preoccupation, I'm going to vomit, right? So that's 5, right? So they say we have 5 senses. There's one more. Which one is it? What is it? I'm going to give you a clue. Buddhists treat this as a 6th sense. I don't know if you study Buddhism. So Buddhists treat the mind as a 6th sense, and you will as well. For this exercise, you will treat your mind as just another one of your senses. So the sense of touch, right? That's just the sense of touch. You feel it right now. Right now, you're probably sitting or maybe you're pacing around the room. I don't know, but you're either feeling the ground underneath your feet, or you're feeling the chair underneath you, right? You can't turn it off. Can you turn off your mind? Can't, right? It just keeps on running and running and running and generating ideas and thoughts and blah, 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 blah. It's constantly blabbing around, right? Does the mind represent absolute reality? No. The thoughts that you're having, do they represent facts? A lot of times, no, right? It's just ideas about the world out there It's ideas, representations, images, just like images on a TV screen, flashing before you, right? When you watch TV, sometimes you're watching a horror movie and it scares you, right? That's a synonymous, analogous. That's analogous to when you have a thought, I'm going to have a heart attack, or I'm going to suffocate to death, or I'm going to lose my mind, right? Those three primary preoccupations. But they're just ideas. Does it ever happen? Has it ever happened? No, most likely no. Some people have overlapping medical conditions with their panic, but vast majority do not. And so it never happens, right? So there's just, it's like when you're in a state of panic and you get all these ideas running through your head, I'm going to have a heart attack, I'm going to have a stroke, I'm going to suffocate to death, I'm going to lose my mind. Those are just horror scenes on a TV screen. And this is what the exercise is all about. It's about defusing yourself, right? So there's a difference between fusion and diffusion. I'll try to give you an example of that in a second. Defusing, seeing that, relating to that stimulus from a distance. And then sometimes you're watching some comedy special, and the images are funny. Sometimes you have funny thoughts, right? Yet during a state of panic, we treat them like facts, right? We treat these ideas, these preoccupations, what's going to happen, I'm going to die, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get embarrassed, I'm going to lose my mind, I'm going to suffocate, right? We treat them like these are facts. We have to defuse ourselves from this. So one thing you can do, one thing we do have you do if you start working with us, one thing we have you do for a week. And by the way, we go into the treatment real quick, because to get you 50% better within 2 months, we got to get you to the treatment real quick. We got to start the exposure real quick. But for the first week, and try this yourself at home, you'll be doing it at home anyway. Try this little meditation exercise where 15 minutes twice a day, all you do is you track what you become aware of. So again, you have six different senses to choose from. Well, the classic ones, they are, physical, they help you orient yourself in your environment. And then your mind. So 6 different ones. For the purpose of this exercise though, what I would advise you to do is focus primarily on commentary, so your mind and your body. So I guess touch, right? Mind and body, mind and body, mind and body. What's coming up in my mind? What am I aware of feeling in my body? And the way this works is you just notice, you catch it as soon as it shows up, and then you let it go. You bring yourself back to this observational point. So you notice a thought, I have to eat soon. I have to make my food soon. Okay, that was a thought about having to eat soon. Letting that go. Back to observational point, waiting for the next thing I could be aware of. What else am I aware of? Oh, I just became aware of that I shrugged my shoulders. I went kind of like this. Okay, noticing that, letting it go. Back to the observational point. Back to this, basically, if you're asking me, where should I rest my attention on while I do this? You should be resting it on waiting for the next thing. That's just one way of doing it. That's my favorite way of doing it, because it kind of primes the mind. And a lot of times, one of the thoughts you're going to have come up for you is like, I'm not thinking anything. Nope, that was a thought. Kind of like meta thinking, right? Thinking about thinking. That still counts. That's a thought. I just noticed that I commented to myself that I'm not having any thoughts. Letting that go, waiting for the next thing, right? You do this for 15 minutes twice a day. This is the kind of attitude you want to have, this observational attitude, when you start doing the exposure, when you're in a state of panic. So when you do this as a homework assignment, start in a boring setting, like you're just chilling in a safe place, you're calm. It's going to be really boring. This exercise is going to be super boring, super easy to do, most likely, unless you have a scary thought. So now I'll give you an example of fusion. So if you get fused with a thought, this is what it looks like. So imagine tax day is coming up. So April 15th, tax day, right? You got everything has to be submitted by the 15th. Otherwise, you get slapped with fees or something like that, right? Penalties. And it's April 14th. It's already almost midnight. You lay down in bed. You're like, you cozy yourself up, you pull up the blankie, and you're like, I'm so good, so nice. I'm gonna go to sleep now. And then a thought comes up, you didn't do your taxes. How hard is it gonna be not to think about how to get those taxes? The next trail of thoughts is gonna be like, oh my God, I didn't do my taxes. What kind of penalties I'm gonna pay? Maybe I can do it in the morning. There's some excuses I can make. That's fusion. You fused with that thought. You're all in it. You're joined with it. If you go from one thought to the next thought, to the next thought, to the next thought, all about that preoccupation, all about that worry, that's fusion. Now, diffusion, and in this example, if you can imagine, it's so hard to do. Diffusion would be like, oh, taxes are due tomorrow, and I didn't do them. I'm letting that thought go. Okay, back to waiting for what's next. I didn't do my taxes. Okay, letting that thought go. Back to waiting for what's next. You gotta do your taxes, you'll be in trouble. Oh my God, that's my thought. I'm scared. But anyway, you can notice your emotions too. That is one of the things. The reason why I don't focus on emotion is because when it comes to panic, it's kind of irrelevant. Because you're really only gonna be feeling one emotion. It's gonna be fear, right? So you can notice it. You can notice it, label it, let it go. Back to observational point, waiting for the next thing. And maybe there's going to be a little bit longer period of silence where your mind won't kick up anything. And it's probably, if we're talking about that situation that I just described, April 14th, taxes are due, you didn't do taxes, it's probably going to be the same thought over and over again. You're going to be letting it go. So during a state of panic, what you're doing is, what if I have a heart attack? That's a thought, and I'm going to have a heart attack. It's preoccupation, letting it go, waiting for the next thing. And this is what you'll be doing during a state of panic. This is how you ride out the state of panic in a very mindful way. So you get all these sensations. I feel like I cannot breathe. That's a thought. Let it go. You can take that even further. So when you're in therapy with us, we help you get deeper. But see, even that, I feel like I can't breathe. Right? That's kind of an interpretation. That's not a fact. That's not a fact. That's not a fact grounded in observation. It's an interpretation of sensations you're having, because what's happening? Your breathing might be a bit constricted, so you're probably all tight up here, right? So you can't get like a super nice breath, right? Because it's just so tight. But you can still get plenty of air. You can be like, fine. Even if your chest can only move this far out, normally you can move this far out. Just examples. Let's just move this far out. You can still go. And you can still get plenty of air exchange. So that's not a factual statement, right? So, but anyways, that's kind of getting more advanced into this whole thing. The basic point I think you get, right? That's the attitude I want you to have during the state of panic. I want you to basically go into it. I want you to walk around wanting a panic attack to happen. Because guess what's going to happen? The moment you are 100% willing for a panic attack to happen, there's a 100% guarantee a panic attack will not happen. The solution to this problem is paradoxical. As a matter of fact, there is one intervention that's been proven. I have a screenshot of the nice little graph where they were testing paradoxical intent on panic attacks. This was actually tested on agoraphobia specifically. So panic attacks stemming from agoraphobia. It's the same thing. Don't worry about it. It's just the attribution differs between panic disorder and agoraphobia. And they were testing paradoxical intent. Paradoxical intent is where you basically want the opposite of what your fear tells you to do. So your fear says you're going to have a heart attack. Your job is to have a heart attack, right? So if it says, if you go in there, you're going to have a heart attack. You go in there to have a heart attack. I'm going in there with the full intention of having a heart attack. That's what I'm talking about, pushing past the discomfort. That's why athletes do so well. So I think I'm going to wrap it up here. It's 24 minutes already I'm running. So I don't know what video I'll do next, but leave your comments, leave your questions. I think that would guide my videos in the future. Goodbye.